Salida, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the review of Fjoergyn's fifth full-length album, Lvcifer Es, or Lvcifer Es. I'm honestly not entirely sure because I see the title written together in shops like Amazon. The eponymous title track, however, has the two words separated, and that's the way it looks like on the cover too. Anyway, I'm happy they decided to write the title with a V instead of a U, because that will hopefully prevent YouTube from demonetizing my video for the use of Lvcifer in the title. Fjoergyn are one of the many metal outfits hailing from Thuringia in Germany, and my relation to their works is a bit a strange one because I only ever seem to like every other album they release. I absolutely loved the first and the third one, didn't really care for the second one at all, and the fourth one made me so mad I almost threw it out of a driving car. Thankfully, this little curse striked again, and I'm happy to say Lvcifer Es is a really damn good album. The album starts you off with an instrumental for an intro that slowly builds up from singular clean guitar strings to more and more instruments, leaving the almost ambient soundscape behind for what you could, I guess, call a full metal crescendo with heavier guitars and drums and various sound effects in it. The first real track, Leviathan, then dives straight away into the meat of this album, beginning with an organ melody and a reciting of the fall of Lucifer. As you might have already guessed by the title, this album is all about him, and while Satan isn't necessarily an especially creative choice of a topic for a metal album, Fjoergyn managed to pull the topic off quite well, I feel. Lvcifer Es is not about how cool Satan is or anything like that, but it's rather about ethical and philosophical concepts tied to him and his biblical story. Free will, doubting your master, or humans' ties and struggles with evil are all topics that are covered on this album. Of course, God is not presented in a great light either, but Fjoergyn managed to stay away from cheap, overused cliches when they portray him as an almost dictatorial ruler who severely punishes any sort of action against him. I also think that Fjoergyn really stepped up their lyrical game with this album. The texts feel written with far more thought and filigree than the ones on prior albums, and the same goes for the singing itself. The screamed and partially growled vocals were good ever since, in my opinion. I liked them from the first album on, but the clean parts sound a lot better than before, because the clean vocals just don't come off as thin anymore as they did before. I don't know if it's just because of the mix they used here, but I definitely welcome it. Sound-wise, Lvcifer Es presents you a colorful mix of many areas. Of course, the typical trinity of screeching electric guitars, hammering drums, and a bass you will most likely barely notice is present here too. But Fjoergyn throws so much more into their compositions here. You have choir-like voices singing in the background of Leviathan, clean guitars as the intro, or a really brief piece by what sounds like an Arabic horn in the eponymous track Lvcifer Es, or the middle of the final track Freiheit, which gets a long, very calm part with slowly played guitars, held back drums, creating this really calm ambient atmosphere where the track almost seems to halt for a moment before throwing you into hard riffs and drums again once more. The attention to little details and the amount of bells and whistles added to the core of the compositions here are far too numerous to list them all, but they all add up to create a thick atmosphere and representing the topic in an audible format. From string instruments to strange electric sounds that somewhat sound like the baaing of an electric goat, and I have no idea if that was intentional symbolism or not. This is an incredibly varied album that manages to hold its atmosphere through all the variation it offers. Because at the core, this is still a black metal album and it manages to maintain this deeply black metal atmosphere throughout all the other things they threw on top of it. However, not everything is perfect here, because sometimes I just feel they basically overdid it. The best example here is Blut, Samen, Erde. This track covers pregnancy and birth and starts off with the worst lyrics on the whole album. Those quote-unquote metaphors they use here are worthy of an old Rammstein album. Really dreadful stuff. And ending the track on yelling that Holy Mary would have had an abortion is, well, absolutely cringeworthy at best. Really not a fan of those lyrics in this track, even though it's good for the most part music-wise. But what I meant with overdoing it can be found in the ending section of this song. Here you have spoken vocals, whispered vocals, an organ melody, drums and guitars all going on at the same time. It's a complete auditory overload at the end of this 9-minute track. It never gets as bad for as long on any of the other songs, but here and there you can certainly feel a bit overwhelmed by the soundscape, even though I think for almost every instance it works out after you listen to the track once and basically know what to expect. That said, if the band ever hears this, if you ever want to release an instrumental version of Blutsam Erde, I'd be absolutely down for that. Just saying. So, to come to a conclusion here, Lvcifer Es really is a great modern black metal album. In terms of general atmosphere, I would mostly compare it to Niederkunft by Hilruna, albeit less focused. While Niederkunft was really focused on this harsh, cold black metal atmosphere, Lvcifer Es shines through variety, through all the things it added to the base recipe, while still managing to maintain a consistent feeling and atmosphere over the course of this over 1 hour long album. While the topic of Satan was already covered on most likely thousands of albums, Fjoergyn managed to present a fresh angle and packed it into interesting compositions, which will have you discover new details even after multiple listening sessions. A big recommendation for anyone who has a liking for modern black metal, and hopefully this is a sign of what we can expect from Fjoergyn in future, because Lvcifer Es is one hell of an album. Pun intended. So, I hope you enjoyed this review, and if you did, please leave a like or just subscribe to the channel for more German music stuff. You can also follow Sounds German on Twitter or Facebook. I do regularly post new music videos, track releases and stuff like that on there. You can find the links in the description. You can also find a link to a full album stream for this in the description. I thank you very much for watching. Have a nice day. I hope to see you again next time. Salida.